guys, I decided to come back on only because I saw a bunch of people joining while myself and Dr. Rogers were doing our test connection for tomorrow's Instagram live session. Tomorrow's live session, we're going to deal with topics surrounding obesity and different health markers. So I figured I would get on maybe for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and just see if anyone had any fasting related questions right now that they wanted answered. Obviously, I may or may not know the answer, but if I don't know the answer, I promise I won't make things up. That's one thing I am big on. Admit when you don't know, because no one knows everything. And anyone who pretends to know everything, you should give them a side eye. So just to preview what tomorrow is going to be like. So we're going to have an Instagram live session. It is the weekly fasting work girl chat. And when I said we're going to talk about different health markers for obesity, we hear that term thrown around a lot, but what is it to actually be obese? What does that mean? And is all obesity created equal? The other question is, if you are quote unquote normal weight or just overweight, are there other physical markers and other tests that we should be looking at? And does BMI really give the whole picture? When should we, ignore, quote unquote, the BMI, and when should we really not blow it off? I think those will be helpful questions. Also, we're going to introduce the concept of visceral fat and what that means to have fat around your tissue, aka your viscera. So I think all of those will help kind of clear some things up for you guys as to why weight loss and healthy lifestyle, why you should consider it if you have any of these markers or if you have chronic health conditions. It's not about looks, it's about your health. So Lady Leo 7 just asked a question. She said, what number of calories are supposed to be consumed during your eating window? So that is an excellent question, which has a lot of, I won't say controversy, but a little bit around it. So if we kind of look at various studies, you will have some studies which show that it's really more about your meal timing and the composition of your food, meaning the proportion of carbohydrates to proteins to fats, rather than the total caloric number. So you can calculate something called your total daily energy expenditure, and that takes into account your resting metabolic rate, your activity level, etc., and it will calculate what your total caloric needs are for a day. The problem, and not that that's not a good gauge, but the problem with that is it assumes that calories from a Twinkie is processed the same as calories from an apple, which is processed the same as calories from salmon. And so we know just with different research that's not how our bodies work. And so what the school of thought that I subscribe to, which I've been having great success with, but again, everyone's different, but again, you will find research to support this statement that I will make, is that it's not necessarily about the calorie content. Now, sure, if you're eating 5,000 calories a day, that's probably a problem, and you probably don't need that much unless you are playing in the NFL or an ultra athlete, and most of us aren't. So what I tend to do is focus during my eating window on eating nutrient-dense foods, meaning I don't eat a lot of processed carbs, things out of packages, things like that. The majority of my meals were prepared at home. They're not fast food, they're not eating out. I know exactly what went into them. I tend to follow a more low carb lifestyle. That doesn't mean that you have to do that, but that works for me. I tend to limit my carbs a day to about 100 grams of carbs. Sometimes, depending on what I'm feeling like eating, I will do 50 grams of carbs. Other days I'll do 130 grams of carbs. But what I found is that because my carbohydrates mainly come from fruits and vegetable sources, that my body knows what to do with those. And so I'm kind of a mix between a low carb, plant-based way of eating. I do eat plenty of protein and I have moderate portions of fat. So no, my diet is not 70, 80, 90% fat. It is probably maybe 30 or so if I had to estimate. Like I said, I haven't tracked macros in probably over 6 months to a year. But I find that one keeps me healthy, keeps me losing weight, and then it's not focusing on the calories, because when you focus solely on calories, you get into this habit. Well, if I ate poorly today, I can just go run 3 miles and I burn it off, and it doesn't work like that. So you can't outwork a bad diet. So I would say first, I wouldn't focus on calories, honestly, if it were me. I would focus and track your food for a little bit and just get an idea of how many carbs a day you're eating. And if the majority of those carbs are coming from processed foods, then I would back down and try to limit it to less than 130 grams a day, and keeping with the the American Diabetic Association new guidelines. Those guidelines can work for everyone, and kind of just play with that. So that was a long answer to your question. So Booski Sony, I'm sorry I'm late. Oh no, don't worry. The thing isn't until tomorrow. I just logged on because I saw people were online and figured I'd do an impromptu session. So your response is saying, I'm sorry I'm late here, and I don't know if this question was covered, but I want to know that can we drink coffee with artificial sweeteners like sugar-free, or does it cause an insulin spike? It causes an insulin spike. The problem with artificial sweeteners, and so again, we are all on different spectrums of kind of what our bodies can tolerate, what we do well with, what we don't do well with. But artificial sweeteners are actually worse than if you just would have the plain sugar in its form. Obviously, if you're doing a fast and we're trying not to spike insulin, you're best to avoid all sweeteners, artificial or real. But the problem with artificial sweeteners is that your body expects that when you taste something sweet, you're getting you're getting calories or some sort of nutrient value with that, right? So if you have your artificial sweetener, but it's 0 calories, your body feels cheated. It's like, wait a second, where's the real meal? And then you're gonna set off cravings and then actually potentially consume more than what you would have done just because it sets off a chain of events. So personally, during fasting, I mean, and obviously we all have to start somewhere, right? So if you need to start your fast and you're new in your fasting journey and you're like, look, I'm just doing well to get to 16 hours of fasting. You know what? Then have your little bit of sweetener and make it palatable for you. But I would say that over time, you may notice that is impairing your results, that you're not quite getting the level of insulin resistance that you would like, and I would avoid those. The other thing you could do is if you can't drink plain black coffee, and I'll tell you what, it took me like 9 months to almost a year to be able to drink plain black coffee. And depending on how it works, just depending on how your fasting is going, I have some fasts where I am just like struggling that day and I'm like, yeah, I need some cream in this coffee. We're not doing it black today. And you know what? It happens because nobody's perfect 100% of the time. And I still feel like Otherwise, my body is still obtaining some benefits. So I think when you first start out, you know, you may need some of those things, but I would try to cut it out. And then plant-powered MD, I'm trying to find your question. Okay, there it is. You said, what about erythritol? So personally, I don't use that. Like I said, okay, now I'm getting to be a little more stricter and things like that. I don't use erythritol either. I just, you know, if I'm gonna have something sweet, I'm just gonna have the real thing. I'm just gonna have sugar because not that it's good for you to have too much sugar, but I know the structure, I know what's been done to it, and there's calories associated with it. My body doesn't feel cheated. I just think it's about moderation, true moderation. And I maybe have added sugar to something where I'm actually, obviously there's sugar hidden everywhere, but where I'm actually physically reaching for a spoon and adding sugar. I mean, maybe I do that a couple times a year. So it just depends on where you're at. But plant-powered MD does like black coffee. I'm telling you guys, once you've been fasting for a while, and you have kind of weaned yourself off a lot of processed foods, things taste sweeter just naturally. You know, I do eat fruit. I don't eat fruit every day. And when I do eat fruits, I tend to eat more berries and things. But there were some grapes around the other day, and I remember I tasted some, and I mean, that could have been ice cream, honestly. It just was so sweet. And so I also think it's about retraining your palate, because we have just been fed so much sugar and artificial sweeteners. Those are designed, some of them are 200 times sweeter than the actual natural taste of sugar found in our fruits or vegetables or wherever. So I really do think it's just about, you know, retraining your palate. But Rome was not built in a day. So I just always say tackle something, right? And then once you get one thing down, then let's work, you know, on other things. Because you do have to focus on your nutrition during your eating window. As I've said before, and I'll say it time and time again, even though, again, there's other schools of thought, but fasting is not an excuse just to have whatever you want, smorgasbord or whatever. So that's something to keep in mind. Another question. So Lady Leo says, I'm doing 20 hours of fast and my stomach is shrinking so quickly. So now I'm not hungry and my taste buds are weird now. So I want to say good. I don't know what you mean by how your taste buds are weird now. Maybe, can you elaborate on that? Is it just a little sweeter? Or are things before, like, I don't know, name a food. I don't know, like eggplant. You have eggplant and now you're like, ooh, it's so sweet. I don't know. But the stomach shrinking, I think, is good. You hopefully are increasing your natural insulin sensitivity. And the interesting thing about insulin is obviously we know that insulin, when it's unchecked, the insulin resistance and all of that can set off a cascade of events that lead to weight gain. But when the body is working in perfect harmony, insulin actually is supposed to deliver messages to your central nervous system through through the POMC-CART pathway, which you guys may not care about the pathway. I have some boards I'm taking, so I'm gonna say this to prove to myself I have this stuff down and learned. But anyway, and it's supposed to activate satiety and set off a cascade of events that prevents weight gain. But the problem is we have just gotten so out of whack, and so with our additional visceral fat and all these different peripheral signals, everything's uncoupled. And so insulin then becomes unchecked and just signals storage. So definitely, if one, you don't want sugary things, I think the fasting's working. Your insulin sensitivity is probably improving. It's getting restored. It's addressing cravings. I would bet if we had to draw lab work on you for research purposes, I bet your ghrelin levels are going down. Ghrelin stimulates hunger and cravings. So I don't know. I think that it's good that you don't want sugary things. I don't crave sugary things. The only thing that gets me about a few times a year are still Reese's peanut butter cups. And that's just because I love Reese's peanut butter cups. But I will say in the last 12 months, I can count on one hand the time that I've had any. And you know what? If I can do that per 12-month period, I'm okay with that. Yeah, no, that's what you want. So she followed up with, I even thought a banana was sweet, but I'm getting used to the fast. No, that's what we want, guys. So remember, fruit was nature's original candy. That's what nature designed, right? And if we're keeping in fruit and talking about, buying locally grown fruit that's in seasonal harvest, things of that nature, depending on where you lived, you couldn't have apples all year round. So with the globalization and industrialization, food is shipped everywhere from this place, that, or the other. But there were times when it was warm, we would enjoy fruit. And in the winter, we didn't. So we had these natural kind of periods to where, that could help keep things in check and balance. And we don't necessarily have that anymore. But fruit, that, you shouldn't need to put extra sugar on top of fruit for it to taste sweet. It should taste sweet to you. So I just think that, I don't know, I just think that your fasting you're experiencing the benefits of what we say. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, whatever, it's not true. But actually, when you look at the science and the physiology of fasting, it is true. And I'm happy that you are starting to notice that things that nature designed to taste sweet are tasting sweet, and that, you don't need sugar. So I think your taste buds are normalizing out. That's what I would say. And then Plant Powered MD mentions that she is sugar-free for 2 weeks. And that's monumental. And I say, hey, that is amazing. So that, again, sugar, what I always say, and, people have different thoughts or whatnot, and everyone's going to have their own thoughts, but, which you're entitled to. But when I think about processed foods and treats and things like that, we really try not to keep it in our home. We have 2 boys. I don't want them growing up thinking that it's okay to have sweets all the time, because it's not. So we have a garden. During the summer, the boys help me with the garden. We don't use any chemicals on it, so it is not uncommon for me to turn my back and see them biting out of a tomato, like it's an apple. Sugar will always find you, right? So you're never not going to go eat out at a restaurant again. That dish that you had, they have probably put sugar in it because we are used to having sugar. So what I think is important is for the things that you can control, which you do control what's in your house, okay? And if you're a parent, you do control what your children eat. You buy the food, you're making the money, you control it. And so what I would just say is, I think a first step too, once you get fasting out, again, Rome wasn't tackled in a day, and so you're gonna drive yourself crazy trying to do everything at once. Get your fasting down and then go through your cabinet. I'm gonna do a piece on this maybe after I take my boards, just so I can make sure I'm pulling together the latest evidence. But we gotta look at food labels. So, if food labeling is key. And so if you were to read the food labels in your house, you would probably throw half the stuff out and wouldn't want to put it in your body. And I would say about 10 months ago, after reading a book called Deep Nutrition, I went and there were so many things in the pantry. I was just like, that's gone, that's gone, that's gone. Not buying this, bye-bye. And so the thing is that if you're not keeping it in your home, then when you know, run into a meal that had whatever added that you usually wouldn't eat, you don't, one, feel guilty about it. It's probably not going to impact you negatively because it's true moderation, which really moderation should mean rarely, not moderately. Low carb Coco Channel says, I don't eat fruit. However, I grow lemons and drink lemon water daily. You know, there are a lot of people who do that with fasting. I don't have enough, I guess, background on that particularly, or research to say, should you not have lemon in your water during fasting? I think if you're getting good results, go for it. And then if that starts to plateau and you're like, what's going on? You know, then maybe try just drinking plain water or unsweetened tea. But there are a lot of people who drink lemon, like infused water, and lemon has some natural benefits. So I don't really see a huge problem with that. I think you just got to track your personal results and be ready to adjust. And it says, pain is so much better without fruit. Oh, I meant without sugar. Okay, I was like, I'm not sure what you mean by fruit. Yes, so sugar in general, there have been some studies to show it's how like the glycosylation, meaning sugar binding to different tissues in your joints and things like that, can set off different chronic disease states and things of that nature. So that is not uncommon. One thing people report when they go lower carb is that some of their just chronic health ailments start to get better, and that's even without weight loss. So again, I am not saying that you cannot have carbohydrates. I just really like to make a distinction between carbohydrates that come from the earth and carbohydrates that come from a package. Avoid carbohydrates that come from a package, but carbohydrates from the earth, I mean, I have yet to meet anybody who OD'd on broccoli. So I'm glad that you are noticing some results with going sugar-free. And just from chatting with other people and perusing other blogs and then seeing, perusing PubMed, that is a common finding for a lot of people. All right, guys. Well, hey, I just thought I'd get on because I saw some people were on. I am going to wrap it up so I can get some sleep because I am a little tired. But we will chat tomorrow. Tell your friends. They can follow me on Instagram to see the video tomorrow, or they can follow Dr. Kim Lifestyle also. Follow either or of us, or best follow both of us. And you can tune in tomorrow for our chat. And then the week after that, we have Al Keto Bonito. So if you haven't already checked out his Instagram page, go over there and check it out. He is not a physician, but he is what I call a real life. I mean, clearly I'm real. You're seeing I'm alive. But he is a real life weight loss champion who's lost over 170 pounds with intermittent fasting. So I really also wanted to bring some people on the show that were not medical professionals, because I wanted you to see what the power of fasting is and what the power of nutrition is. And these are people doing it for free every day in their life. You know, they're not paying anybody. They don't have to have a personal chef. And that all of these lifestyle changes really are doable. You just need the tools. So after that, once we get up into February, we have Dr. Nicole Barker coming on, who's going to talk about PCOS, infertility, and how diet and nutrition play a role into that. We're going to have Dr. James Carson come on, who is an orthopedic doc, who's going to talk about the effects of excess weight and how that could be affecting some of your orthopedic issues like back pain, things like that. Who else? Dr. Amy Shaw is going to come on. If you haven't checked out her Instagram page, definitely do that. She is going to talk to us all about the gut microbiome, which I am fascinated in that as well. So you guys keep checking back every week, and remember that you can see the recap of this for 24 hours on my page. And then also visit www.fastingworkgirl.com, and we post the recaps of the fasting work chats there. And get ready for next Monday for the reverse fasting 2-week challenge that we're going to see what that does for your life and see how you feel in 2 weeks. All right, have a good night.